G'day everyone, welcome to practice. This is your memo movement practice for trimester 3. Welcome. If we haven't met before, my name is Amy Carmody. I've been a yoga teacher, a mobility coach and personal trainer for 13 years. I have 2 young sons and have had 2 cesareans. So I've been guiding maybe you through first and second trimester practices, or maybe this is the first time you're joining me for your 3rd trimester. What you'll need for practice is a chair, something like a ball, a couch cushion could work too. If you have a pregnancy pillow or a feeding pillow or a bolster at home, and something stretchy, so if you have a theraband, a pair of workout tights will also work. So welcome, the 3rd trimester. When you get to those last final weeks, you just so desperately want to push the eject button. It starts to get pretty uncomfortable, even if maybe you had a pretty comfy pregnancy at this point. It does, I think, did personally for me, especially on my 2nd pregnancy. It started to get pretty uncomfy. So I'd like to offer you some pelvic floor down regulation work. So yes, we want to have a strong pelvic floor, but not to the demise of having a functional pelvic floor. So we don't want to just train its strength. We also need to train its adaptability, its endurance, and its ability to soften and relax, just like any other muscle in your body deserves to do. You are preparing to have your baby really soon, so exciting. And we want to make sure that our pelvic floor has the capacity to soften, widen, and open. And that's okay if, like me, you didn't learn any of this before your births, or it's just that you do have a habitually hypertonic pelvic floor. We just want to do as best as we possible to keep this area functional and happy and balanced. Thoracic, neck, shoulders, rib cage starts to get really pushed at this stage, so let's try and get you as comfortable through here as we can. Sciatica can build up, so we'll do some sciatic release work and just kind of roll around with the chair and make ourselves as comfortable as we possibly can. So get yourself in a comfortable position. If you prefer to sit on a chair to do this work, please do. So you're taking your Pilates ball or your little couch cushion literally between the 2 sitting bones, which if you kind of either sit on your heels or put your fingers on your heels and then sit on them and wiggle from side to side, you've got these 2 like kind of ribbon looking bones at the bottom base of your pelvis called your ischium bones, and it's where your hamstrings connect up to. And so our pelvic floor is like a sling of muscles, a hammock of muscles that have the ability to contract and support, so holding our pelvic organs and keeping things held in when we want, but it also needs to have the capacity to stretch, widen, soften, to release. That's really important even when you're doing things like going to the toilet. So all the work we've done prior with this integration of core strength, hinge work, in the beginning, 1st trimester, you can kind of keep moving very similar to how you were. 2nd trimester, we need to begin adapting and preparing for parenthood life. And then in the 3rd trimester, we just want to try and start making sure that this is all functional as best as possible. So let's practice sort of meeting the pelvic floor against the ball, whether you kind of bounce a couple of times or wiggle side to side. You can have hand on bump. I wish I had my nice big baby bump to show you. It's gone now. And this ability to soften and feel the feedback of your pelvic floor on top of the ball. So you might be someone who notices that they really hold quite rigidly you grind your teeth, you clench your jaw, or you kind of restrict the throat. We similarly do that in the pelvic floor oftentimes. So just see if you can relax against the ball as you breathe. Sit up tall yet comfortably. So let's just try a few times. When we inhale, the diaphragm, our breathing muscle at the base of the ribs, descends to make room for the lungs to expand. So it gets out of the way and moves down for our ribs to move laterally so the lungs can inflate. So the diaphragm pushes down, which puts more pressure on your pelvic floor. So then when you exhale, the diaphragm ascends, lifts back up, and your rib cage will minimize capacity size. So just kind of visualize that for a couple of rounds, a few cycles of breath. So can we, on the inhale, feel that descending of the diaphragm and the softening and spreading of the pelvic floor against the ball? It's very slight, minimal oscillation. But then on the exhale, you might have heard it as like the little blueberry lift at the perineum, at the pelvic floor, and the diaphragm ascends back up. Right? So just sort of practicing our ability to both soften, relax, full belly hang, full pelvic floor stretch and opening. You can imagine your sitting bone material spreads right and left and front to back. And then that kind of oscillation lift as we exhale. So that's something you can be practicing on your ball. You might have a big Bosu ball at home, is just this visualization of your capacity to soften the pelvic floor, spread, stretch, and release. You can even sit on a foam roller and work between those two ischium points to literally try and stretch and release. Okay, so if you're still comfortable on your ball, feel free to stay. We'll do a little bit of work in the thoracic before we meet the chair. So pull on your stretchy band or your yoga tights, whatever shall suffice. Nothing too narrow so that you can comfortably do a pass through and back over. And when you do the pass through, let your shoulder blades glide up when the humeral joint, which is the head of your shoulder, goes into a state of flexion. You want to allow elevation to your scapulars to support that flexion in your shoulder. It's called scapular humeral rhythm. It's just how your shoulder joint functions and moves, ideally. So just a little bit of lubrication through there. We'll hold our arms overhead, take one hand to the ground and the other hand into what looks like tricep stretch. And you can kind of pull more on the strap to get a little bit more tension if you wish. But getting that side body involved, using your head to lift your chest up. I had such sore shoulder blades and a neck in my last 10 days of my second pregnancy. So this thoracic work feels so nice. And then lifting yourself back up, pushing tension out onto the band, and then other side. So taking hand to floor, pulling on the strap, little tricep opening. You might do a little wiggle here, opening up the side body. And then lifting yourself back up. Take the strap behind you. Then as you grab the strap just in left hand, you can lift the strap over baby bump so it's not cutting you right off in the center. Grab the strap just in one hand and pull with this elbow pinned to your waistline, this shoulder, this humerus, into external rotation. So I'm pulling out like I'm offering a plate of food, but then I side bend my neck the other way, and I sort of tease that tension and sticky fascia by just moving it and hydrating. So this elbow's pinned, this shoulder is in external rotation as you open up through the neck, which is such a great one for postpartum when you're either breast or bottle feeding, you still have to cradle and hold baby, and it does a number on your thoracic. Let's do that on the other side. So I pin this elbow to my rib cage. You might lift band over bump and keep the forearm down, and then you can work. You could even use your hand to facilitate open, release. Just keeping that shoulder and external rotation. Such a nice neck opening. You can place your ball and your strap to the side. We'll place our forearms onto the chair however you wish. We'll cat-cow. So maybe again we practice as we tilt into anterior and soften the belly just gently, that imagining the pelvic floor softening and the sitting bones widening. And then you can exhale, pull the tailbone underneath you, which will probably give you a nice sacroiliac joint release. Your thoracolumbar fascia in the mid-spine will open up, head tucks in. So a few more times like that. And you can have a little wiggle and sway. Oftentimes that swaying, rocking motion helps a lot of people soften within the pelvic inlet. And then curling under, maybe even a little wiggle of your tailbone. Let's try that one more time. Then walk your knees just a little bit further back from the chair so that you can take one hand to the opposite leg and thread. I like thumb down grip. Thread one arm underneath. And you just need to be mindful your thighs are nice and wide at this point of pregnancy to accommodate a nice big belly. And you just keep yourself upright to get slight minimal rotation. And then it's like you're pulling a rope. That elbow reaches back. So we reach under and pull back. Reach under and pull back. So just trying to maintain that thoracic mobility as much as we can. Pull the rope. Pull the rope. And other side. So thumb down grip. We reach and slice under. You're also in the hinge position throughout, and the all fours position, which you might find is a position you stay in or favor throughout your labor. But it's certainly, as you remember from the second trimester practice, the hinge position is what we spend so much time in as parents. So then now place two hands onto the chair. Bring your knee points under your hip points to support you coming into downward facing dog. And a little sway right and left, right and left. So you can do these figure of eights, side to side, side to side. Then we'll step the right foot underneath us. Your right forearm can come to the back of the chair. Hover the left leg and we'll laterally move the hip. You might know this is a fire hydrant if you were to have a bent leg. 10 times out to the left. So again, we're in the hinge position. Keep your chest open. Keep lifting the TVA, which feels like lifting baby away from the ground. 3, 2, 1. Now, that hip that is now nice and warm, bend it and take it back behind you just to feel the groin stretch, to prepare the ankle to hook over into a figure 4 stretch. The reason I'm doing this one standing, I'll show you a seated variation in a moment, is because it allows me to wind the pelvis into anterior tilt, which gets right into the external rotator, which the sciatic nerve pierces through. So if at this stage you're getting quite severe sciatica, give a lot of attention to your external rotators, but keep training your lateral hip muscles so it's not just your external rotators that get really, really tight. Keep mobilizing your hip in internal rotation. So this is again, you want to try and create a lumbar curve in your spine. That is the variation where you're standing. Otherwise you can sit. Again, try and come out of your lower back and lean forward, 5 breaths. Soften your mouth, release the tension from your shoulders. Easier said than done, right? Now this I opened my left glute, so that is the knee that will be on the ground in a lunge position with my right hip directly against the chair, and placing your forearm and elbow into the chair, lateral reach, feeling left glute firm and supportive. Then bringing this knee underneath you, and we'll do little pelvic scoops here. So it looks like a supportive forearm plank, which you can start doing your planks supported inverted. So push the ground away, but then rock anterior pelvis again, like you're scooping ice cream. Scoop the tailbone underneath to come back to a forearm plank. So do that 5 times, scoop under. So just that subtle amount of strength work that we've continued throughout the pregnancy for your TVA, but just getting that mobilization of your hips and pelvis in as well. So knees are underneath you, press your 2 hands, step, and have another little wiggle in downward facing dog. Full inhale breath. Exhale, release. Now it is your left foot that will step right underneath you. Left forearm comes to the chair, and 10 times your right leg kicks to the right, really nice and slow. Try to minimize the movement at the pelvis. So I could go much higher and faster, but I really just want to make it about my hip moving into abduction. And if there's any PGP discomfort, you can be doing this really minimally with support on the chair and with a band. You don't have to kick as high. 3, 2, 1. Keep the leg out there. Bring the heel to the sitting bone, and then think thigh bone back just to open up the front of the hip inside the groins. And then that's a nice position to bring you into your hooked figure 4. And trying to take that tailbone back behind you and increasing slightly lumbar curve. Take 5 breaths. You can do your seated variation as well. Try and soften your lips, your mouth. Take 1 more inhale. And a full breath out. So that right hip will be the knee that is on the floor, the one that I just opened for your side stretch. So left hip is adjacent. And then use your forearm on the chair. Keep your right glute nice and firm. Opening up through the ribs. Hold your head if you need that support. And then similar to how we did our setup when I taught you how to lie down, you have 1 block under your head, 1 block underneath your shoulders. I'll show you how you can do a little legs up the wall without lying flat on your back, or I call it legs up the chair. So your pillow goes over the blocks. And make sure that when you sit down, you're getting down sideways, hip onto the chair. Whenever you're lying down, you don't just lean back like this, because it will put added pressure on your diastasis. So we want to try and get down on our side. Ensure that the chair is comfortably as close to the point where when you lie down, you can support the backs of your calves and your knees. You have that nice angle. Oh my God, I just want to stay here. You have that nice angle of the bolster, which means you're not lying flat on your back. You could put your legs up on the couch. Got that nice elevation of your feet. If it's summertime and you're all swollen, roll your ankles around and just let your lymphatic drain. You could also stack some pillows so that your feet are even higher than your knees. And if it still feels like, even though you're on an angle and you're not flat, that you need to turn to the side a little bit, just turn to the side if you get, heartburn or anything like that. But put your feet up for a little bit. Get really nice and comfortable Hope that practice helps to relieve some neck and shoulder tension, the sciatic nerve, and to down regulate that pelvic floor in preparation for what's to come. But it's also really important that your pelvic floor functions optimally. That is the ability to tone, strengthen, endurance, and also its capacity to soften, working with that diaphragm and your breathing capacity. And I hope it helped. All the best. Any questions, feel free to contact me, and I hope to see you really soon.